It may be relatively crude on the surface, but its power performance is very, very strong so far. For example, this robot was also used in the Spring Festival Gala. And next week, we have a robot competition in Beijing. And this robot will also participate. You can keep an eye on it. Then, additionally, like last year, we released our second robot, which is the G1 robot. This robot is still very, very representative. What does it represent? Well, since we released this robot last year, from the second half of last year to this year, you can see that many other companies' new humanoid robots look very, very similar to our robot, with a very, very similar structure. Then, the power, performance, and flexibility of this robot are very, very good. Relatively speaking, when it was released last year, the lowest configuration of this robot was approximately 99,000 yuan, which is very, very competitive. So this robot last year and this year is probably the humanoid robot with the highest shipment volume globally. If you usually browse Douyin or some video accounts, you can see many of our customers spontaneously live streaming on many Douyin platforms. There are many live streams basically every day, so you can check them out. Many people are doing live streaming and similar activities online. So this robot is currently seen in many places and is also quite competitive. And additionally, we just released one in the past 1 or 2 weeks. This new humanoid robot R1 also has very distinctive features. Its biggest feature is its relatively higher cost effectiveness. It is of course slightly smaller, about 1.2 meters, but its lowest configuration price is 399,000 yuan. This robot, another notable feature is that we have left a lot of customization space for the appearance for customers. You can modify or paint your preferred design on it. As everyone knows, people still like to dress up their robots with various outfits and paint jobs, which is something they really enjoy. So I think this robot, by this year and next year, should be a model that people around the world will see very, very often, and people quite like it. At our exhibition, if you're interested, you can take a look. However, the mass production is not yet finalized, so the delivery might be delayed. Then, as mentioned, you can do painting and such on it, just allowing you to customize various body designs you like. I think this is a very interesting thing. Additionally, many people think our company is always making robots for performances or fighting, but our company has always placed great importance on robots doing work. Our core goal is still to have robots perform tasks, including autonomous robots and humanoid robots. We have also done a lot of data collection and some data open sourcing. If you're interested, you can follow us. We continue to... If you check our public repository every 1 or 2 months, we release some algorithms and open source data which you can explore. Including us, our company over the past many years, starting from 2016, has developed the core components of our robots ourselves, including grating encoders, detectors, and some sensors. In this video, it shows our second generation 3D LiDAR that we developed. The biggest feature of this 3D LiDAR is its very large field of view, reaching over 90 degrees by 360 degrees, and it is very cost effective, with a single unit's public retail price being only around yuan RMB. Then it is also standard on our lowest configuration robot dog, equipped with our 3-dimensional laser radar. And you can notice that although this 3-dimensional laser radar is relatively inexpensive, its precision is still very, very good, reaching an accuracy of 2 to 3 centimeters, and it can be used both indoors and outdoors. So for some low-speed robots like cleaning robots or some logistics robots, I am very supportive. If everyone wants to reduce the cost of robots, I highly recommend using this robot, because for a small logistics robot, your cost can even be reduced to just a few thousand yuan, which is very, very competitive. Additionally, like our G1 in the past 6 months or so, everyone has noticed that globally, including our company's entire robotics technology and AI technology, has been advancing very, very quickly. In this video, which is from January this year, you can see that its running is still a bit stiff. However, in the past few months, we have opened it up to over-the-air updates for our customers, and its running movements have become much smoother. Additionally, our running can handle complex terrains. Some other manufacturers might only be able to run on flat ground, but our robots can operate on slopes and even rocky roads, and this feature is already available to all customers. So you can notice that both domestically and in the United States, there are actually many customers using our robots to participate in various events, very, very many. Additionally, a very, very top-level event was a Spring Festival Gala in January this year, where our robots danced, and this has also become one of China's a symbol of technology and traditional culture. I think this is a very, very difficult thing to achieve, because as everyone knows, if it's just a performance, people often forget about it 1 or 2 days after it ends. However, now the robot and traditional culture, this Yanko dance performance has already become a technological cultural symbol in China to some extent, which I think is very, very representative. I think maybe in 10 or 20 years looking back, it will also be very, very classic. For this project, we collaborated with director Zhang Yimou. As you might not imagine, the idea of twirling and tossing handkerchiefs was proposed by director Zhang Yimou, and we helped him realize it technically. And what is the biggest challenge of this project? The biggest challenge is not having a single robot dance. We actually achieved a single robot dancing in the first half of last year. The biggest aspect of this project, the challenge is using 16 robots to automatically change formations while dancing. They have three-dimensional laser radar on their heads, which allows them to automatically change formations in the entire scene. You see, dancing is all fully automatically performed. Simply put, every time the performance starts, once the music plays, the entire process is fully automated and we can't even interrupt the performance midway.
So this was very, very challenging, and of course the final result was also very, very outstanding, exceeding everyone's expectations, exceeding my own expectations.
Everyone really, really liked this program, including even a lot of cosplay, where people cosplay this program, and many students also liked this program. Additionally, you may have noticed that, hey, when our robots dance, for example, in February or in recent months, the robot dancing can be much smoother. Actually, why did everyone notice that the robots dancing at the Spring Festival Gala seemed a bit stiff? The reason is very simple. It's because we only developed this technology in February, so it wasn't realistic to use it for dancing in January. Moreover, another point is that everyone might be curious why we used our older black robots for the Spring Festival Gala instead of our newer ones. The reason is quite simple. This robot is a bit small, only about 1.3 meters tall, and during performances, people still prefer slightly larger robots for better effect. Moreover, as you can see, this technology for dancing and Kung Fu is not our latest technology. It is considered our older generation technology. The biggest feature of this technology is that it can learn, theoretically, it can learn any action, whether it's learning martial arts or dance, it can actually learn both. But what is the downside of this technology? The action sequences are fixed. Before the performance, you need to collect a sequence of actions using motion capture data, then use it for AI training, and after training, apply it to the robot. But there is a big problem, which is what? The entire sequence of movements is fixed once collected, and you can't adjust the movement. Sometimes you can't even interrupt the whole performance. So in a sense, this is an older generation of our technology, but at this point it has been implemented, although it is still not sufficient in one aspect. However, the stability is still quite good. Another thing I just emphasize is that our company has always placed great importance on robots, including small tasks like handling change and working during office hours. Moreover, it might be hard to believe, but our company actually has the most people working on AI for robots to perform tasks, including hand operations and full body work. Most of the AI team in our company is focused on making robots work. But why does our company do relatively little promotion in this area? The reason is quite simple. Our company hopes to create AI that works, not single-function AI. It's not about having a robot tidy up clothes or cook a meal. We actually don't want to do that. What we truly want to create is a general-purpose AI for work, hoping it can perform various functions, including serving tea, working in factories, and even performing arts. Therefore, the challenge for this AI model is extremely significant. Up to now, the results have not been particularly ideal, which is why our promotion in this area has been relatively limited. Additionally, this is our latest generation of technology, which is actually the technology we use in combat. This video is a preview we made in April when we first developed this technology. You can pay attention to the actions in this preview and check it out at our booth. Actually, it's a bit different. How is it different? When it was made in April, the action speed was a bit slow. You can notice that its punching and kicking actions are a bit slow, but we think if the movements are slow, it is not very ideal for the overall fighting effect. So later in May, when we actually collaborated with CCTV for a global live broadcast, we again, its punching speed, including the speed of various movements, has been enhanced significantly, at least doubled. Therefore, its overall force will be much greater. Why do we mention that this is our company's latest technology? Because as you know, every time it performs a combat move or a series of continuous combat moves, you can consider it as a sequence of actions. And we have between 10 to 20 action sequences that need to satisfy random free combinations. Because I got bored. When those they combine the see, the randomness of your movements is quite significant. It's not that after you throw a punch, the next move is predetermined. The movements form a freely combined sequence. For example, it starts as 1, 2, 3, then I do 2, 3, 1, or 3, 2, 1. The permutations of its action sequences are very, very many. It needs to satisfy the entire random combination of actions, and when combining randomly, it should be relatively smooth. You can't have one action done well, and then switch to the next action very, very stiffly. Another crucial point is that it needs to have a greater impact resistance capability, because as everyone knows, during competitions or fights, the external impacts and disturbances are very, very significant, which is very different from simple dance performances or martial arts performances. As everyone knows, there are no external disturbances during dance performances. However, during a fight, the external interference is very significant, including when you are kicking, others will hit you, including many extreme movements. If everyone is interested, you can take a look at our robot's legs. Its legs have many dents, and you should know that these legs are made of aluminum alloy, which also has many dents. So the impact force is quite significant and also quite interesting. Then, regarding this competition project, what is actually the most interesting? Watching it on video doesn't give a particularly good sense, but if you have the chance to operate our robot, the operators have the best experience. And secondly, if there's a chance standing next to the robot during a fighting match, the experience is also very, very good.
But when watching the video initially, the experience wasn't actually that good.
Additionally, as just mentioned, we recently released our latest model, the O3.3, priced at $399,000, our latest humanoid robot. This type of robot is relatively lightweight and safe, with a self-weight of about 25 kilograms, making it very lightweight. Due to time constraints, we won't introduce more here. Including the new generation A2, our autonomous robot released some time ago, which is also very lightweight and has a very strong load capacity. We still hope it can be more widely applied in industrial scenarios. Finally, the protection level is also quite high, being dustproof and waterproof. Then additionally, let me share my personal view on the current state of the robotics market, both domestically and globally. Actually, in the first half of this year, the biggest feature is that, in my personal opinion, due to the booming robotics industry and related policy support, then, regarding this market trend, I think on average, each complete machine manufacturer, including component manufacturers, has experienced growth of at least 50 to 100%. So the growth is quite astonishing. This is very rare in the entire industry, where demand has driven the development of the whole industry. Additionally, overseas, it is undeniable, for example, with Tesla as a representative, they plan to mass produce several thousand humanoid robots this year, and there is a high probability they will release their third generation of Tesla humanoid robots this year. People should pay more attention to these developments. Currently, globally, there is enthusiasm for this area, especially from large overseas companies, including Nvidia, Apple, and Meta. They are all continuously promoting the development of this field. Additionally, I'll share a few of my personal thoughts and ideas, which may not be entirely accurate. The first point is that regarding the robot itself, many people might have a misconception, like why robots are not yet widely applied on a large scale, or why the current functions of robots are not sufficient. Some might suspect whether the current hardware is not good enough or the cost is relatively high. Actually, the biggest issue is that the current hardware is actually sufficient, in some ways completely sufficient. Even the hardware of humanoid robots, including dexterous hands, the complete machine, in a sense, is entirely sufficient. But of course, it's not good enough, meaning we must continuously work to make it better. Now, the bigger issue is that you need to mass produce it. There are certainly many engineering issues, but from a technical standpoint or from the perspective of AI, the current hardware is completely sufficient. But the biggest challenge at present is that the AI of giant god intelligence is still completely insufficient. This is also the biggest limitation at the time for the large-scale application of robots, especially humanoid robots, which is that the large models or giant AI are still not quite sufficient. In simple terms, it currently feels a bit like the 1 to 3 years before ChatGPT came out. Currently, the entire industry has already identified similar directions and technical routes, but no one has implemented them. As everyone knows, before ChatGPT came out, voice AI had been developed for 10 to 20 years, but people always thought it was very basic and not intelligent, completely unusable. When ChatGPT came out, it reached a stage that was even better than most people now.
So this stage has not yet been reached.
This critical point, if we consider the critical point for robot AI, I think it would reach a level where if one day we bring a humanoid robot to this venue and it has never seen this venue before, if I casually tell it to help bring this bottle of water to a certain audience member, it can smoothly walk over and do it fluently. Or say, hey, help tidy up this room. And it has never seen this room before, yet it can do it by itself. I think that will be roughly the ChatGPT moment for robots. If this progresses quickly, it might be possible to achieve in the next 1 to 2 years or 2 to 3 years. At the slowest, I estimate that in 3 to 5 years, this concept is also very likely to be realized. You can keep an eye on it.
But right now, it really is still not quite enough and so on.
Then, if this effect is not achieved, is it a problem with the model or the data? I actually feel that globally there is a bit too much focus on the issue of data, specifically robot data. The biggest problem now is actually the model issue, not a data issue. Currently, in terms of super intelligent AI and robots, the model architecture is not good enough and not unified. So the model issue is actually receiving less attention while there is a lot of focus on data issues. Because in the field of large language models, everyone thinks, hey, if I have enough data, especially enough good data, I can train the model to become better and better and better.
However, in the realm of giant intelligent systems and robotics, you may find that in many cases, even when you have the data, it turns out to be unusable.
Why are you collecting data? Because we need to use the data we collect, right? But what if we find that the data can't be used? So in many cases, the current focus on models is relatively low, while the attention on data is a bit too high. And additionally, everyone also knows that currently the relatively popular one is the VEN model. The VEN model is a relatively simple architecture. Actually, I personally hold a rather skeptical attitude towards the VEN model. So for the VEN model, currently when it interacts with the real world, the quality of its data collection is not quite sufficient. So a simple idea is to add RL training on top of the VEN model. This is a very natural thought for everyone, but my personal feeling, including our company's current attempts, is that adding reinforcement learning to the VI model is still not enough. The model architecture still needs to be upgraded and optimized. Then here, I'll briefly share some of the things we've done in the past, which you might also be interested in. For example, a few days ago, Google released their new generation of video generation models, or in a sense, a video-driven world model, which has also garnered a lot of attention. If everyone is interested, you can pay attention to it. As you know, last year when OpenAI released their video generation model, everyone had a very natural thought. If I control a video generation model, tell it to generate a robot to tidy up a room. If the video it generates already shows a robot doing it well, then can I use this video generation model to directly drive a robot to do it?
So this idea is very, very straightforward and simple, right? So last year we went ahead and did this.
So you can see in this video, when a small video appears in the upper right corner,
hey, please help the director replay this video.
There will be a small video in the upper right corner to play this thing. In fact, the video in the upper right corner is generated, not captured by a camera. We used a pre-trained video generation model, retrained it to first generate a basic layer of video actions, and then control a robot to perform them. This technology can be realized, including Google's current video generation world model. They also want to achieve this effect. This is I think the direction of this route might have an even greater probability of faster convergence than VR models.
But I don't have the hardware, so I can't guarantee it. I think there might still be many issues and so on.
One major issue is that video generation models focus too much on the quality of video generation, leading to somewhat high GPU consumption.
But for robots to work in a sense, you would see that you don't need very high precision in video generation quality. You just need to drive the robot to do the work.
So remember, as mentioned earlier, the video in the upper right corner is not a live action video. The video in the upper right corner is generated, a pre-generated video, and then it controls the robot. If anyone is interested, you can check out Google's video generation model, which is quite interesting.
Okay, this is the entire architecture of the model, which is still very straightforward and direct, just aligning the sequence of actions of the entire robot directly to the architecture of the model and so on.
Another point is I wanted to share some personal thoughts earlier, but it's still not quite enough. As you know, currently with robots, for example, when they dance or perform martial arts, the results are actually quite good, right? But in reality, we are now facing a significant problem, which is that if we want to further enhance the overall capability, the scaling law of IL in the field of robotics is currently being done very poorly. For the simplest example, if I train a robot's actions, right? I have a new dance I want to train, or I want it to do a new task, I need to train it. During training, every time I have a new action, I have to retrain from scratch, which is a very bad thing. We hope that each time we do new training, we build on the previous training to do imitation learning training. In theory, when I do imitation learning training, each time the training speed gets faster, and the effect of learning new skills improves. However, in the entire industry, no one has successfully implemented the scaling law, the field of IO, for robots. I think this is a very worthwhile direction to pursue. Because in this IL, the scaling law, as everyone knows, has already been fully validated in language models. However, in terms of motion control for robots, everyone is just getting started. If there are some students present, you can pay attention to this field and so on, and actually publish some good papers and so on.
Then, additionally,
in my personal opinion, in the next 2 to 5 years, the biggest development will definitely be an end-to-end embodied intelligence AI model. This is something everyone can pay more attention to and promote more. I think this is the most important thing. The model itself is the most important. And then there's the lower cost, longer lasting hardware, which is undoubtedly important, as everyone knows, even for the automotive industry, even after more than 100 years, even today. If a company wants to produce a very good car, the engineering workload is extremely large. So for the robotics industry, in the future, for example, if millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of humanoid robots are to be produced and manufactured each year, the challenge of the work and the engineering workload is still a very daunting task.
Additionally, there's low-cost, large-scale computing power.
Additionally, I'll share a concept which is actually in humanoid robots or on the robot body itself, it's actually not possible to directly deploy large-scale computing power. Why? Because its size is this big, its battery is only this big, and the power consumption of the deployed computing power is limited. I personally feel that on humanoid machines, you can only deploy computing power with a peak power consumption of about 100 watts at most. You better have only a few dozen watts of computing power during regular work. Simply put, it's only at the level of computing power of about a few mobile phones. Because its size is relatively small, it cannot deploy large-scale computing power. However, the future demand for large-scale computing power is undoubtedly certain. Moreover, I think it might be a distributed computing power. Why? Because as everyone knows, when a robot is working, we hope its communication latency is relatively low. If your robot working in Beijing has its data center or computing power center in Shanghai or Inner Mongolia, the latency is really too high. So I personally feel that in the future, when used on a large scale in industrial fields like factories, for example, if I have 100 robots in a factory, then I can have a cluster of distributed servers in the factory, and all my robots can just connect directly to the local servers in my factory. But the overall server security, latency, and communication delay are acceptable. Or to change the topic, if in a community, for example, every household has a robot, I think there would definitely be a distributed cluster computing center in this community or area, ensuring its latency and security. And if a new customer wants to buy a humanoid robot, they don't need to spend money on building this part of the computing power, and the cost will be much lower. I think distributed computing power is a very important area in the future of the robotics field, perhaps even more widespread than the current computing power needs. Then another point, as everyone knows, in the past, the field of AI, including robotics, has been a global co-creation process. Including Chinese companies, many large American companies, and NVIDIA. Over the past many years, including the present and the future, everyone has made many contributions, including our desire to jointly promote this matter. So in the field of robotics, I think it has always been a global co-creation. In China, our company or any company has made quite a few contributions. As everyone knows, in the AI field, no one can guarantee, no big company can guarantee that they have enough people, enough resources to always ensure they are the most advanced in the AI field. In the past, OpenAI, including DeepSeek, has already proven that AI innovation is always accompanied by some randomness and more young, smart individuals. So in many cases, every company or university has made many contributions, and it still needs to be a global co-creation. Thank you, everyone.